Hello, my name is Eric Nowicki, and I am the designer of the Deep Space Explorer. And I just want to do a bit of a in-depth walkthrough of my design, and so you have a better idea of kind of all the functions of it. So first off, I want to say I have built this, and here I will pull up some pictures. So I have built it, a slightly earlier version. Within the last couple weeks, I have made some improvements to it. Uh, and so to give you some scale, this is it next to the Blacktron Renegade. So I built it for a couple reasons, but primarily to make sure that it was in fact stable. I didn't want there to be any questions about that. So first off, let me show you the exact dimensions. So part count, it's 1,452 parts. And here is the width, length, and height, and the weight. So due to the part count, it is eligible for up to 6 minifigures. So I went with 3 of the dark turquoise and 3 of the pearl gold classic spaceman. And I built 2 brick-built robots. This one in particular, I took some inspiration from classic space robots. So looking at the design, one of the thing or a couple of the things that I had in mind when I was designing this. First off, I wanted to make sure that I use as many classic space parts as I could that were available, primarily in the colors that I wanted to keep with the design. So as an example, this this plate right here, this modified plate, that was found all throughout classic space, as was this one. I used a lot of the same translucent colors, translucent green, translucent red. The canopies and all the windows are obviously translucent yellow. This piece right here is a classic space piece. This piece right here as well. Classic Space had a lot of very famous parts, so I just really wanted to pay, uh, homage to it, and include them in my design. The lore behind this ship is that it was designed throughout the 1980s and launched in 1987. So that's why you see the colors kind of be combined, a lot of the same colors from then. So you've got obviously the classic space blue and gray from the early years. This right here is all gray, which was very popular. And then as kind of the 80s went on, there was more white that was included. So I wanted to include that as well. So along the same lines as parts, I also wanted to include what will be stickers that are similar to what Classic Space did. So these action arrows, I wanted to include them in areas that there's an obvious action. So, and I can go through them, but right here and right here, these would all be stickers, and as would all of the Classic Space logos. So they're on these parts, and then there is one that is on the top here. So the final piece of criteria that I had was I wanted to make sure that it was very modular, for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of classic space sets, even into the 90s, were very modular. You take them apart, you can put them together in different combinations. Obviously, the Blacktron Renegade came out last year, and there's some modularity there as well. So I wanted to make sure that I incorporated that kind of on overdrive. Next is going along the lines of modularity. It allowed me to also, when doing kind of the instructions and in my head how the build would come together, it kind of meant that having so much modularity allows for team building. So So if you're building with your child or if you're building with your spouse, you can do it together and introduce them to some ideas about classic space and the like. And if you're just building it yourself, you could take breaks. So that it kind of works too. So let's take a look at how modular this actually is. First, why don't I just take this part right there. Okay. So as you can see, right off the bat, the whole front part comes off. Along those lines, these two ships come off, as does this front part. This is kind of a satellite modular research part. So you can move these pins, they can move to the side, these sensors can move to the side, and you can connect this with ships or with other areas of the Deep Space Explorer. I went with the Technic bricks with pins in them as the way to connect everything, as opposed to the newer system with the clips, because I found that I could do a lot more with it. I could create a lot more smaller assemblies, and it was less parts intensive. And one of my goals was to make sure that we kept the part count reasonable. So said this is less than 1,500 parts, and that was kind of one of the ways that I had to go about doing it. So looking at this first ship, you'll notice that this one has larger engines, translucent yellow canopy. Underneath here, you have two sensors that are locked in. Everything is pretty much locked in throughout all the assemblies. That was kind of one of my things. I didn't want any antennas just falling off. I wanted to make sure that everything was locked in. And actually, this way of doing it is a classic space kind of technique. Back here, you have a cargo area. And then inside, one of the other things was the controls in classic space were either two antenna or a steering wheel. So I wanted to make sure that I did use that wherever possible. There were some other ways of minifigures to control things, but those were kind of like the big ones. So that's the first spaceship. Let's take a look at the second one. So here's the back, here are the engines, and then here is another cargo container. Up front, you have a whole different sensor array. Like I said, these slot right back in here. Let's look at this middle section. So here is another classic space piece, this kind of megaphone. This is in red. This indicates these are fuel connectors. So you could detach this and fuel up your spaceships. In here is the energy source for the ship. This is kind of an Easter egg for the Lego movie Benny's Spaceship, and you can actually access that by opening this bottom hatch. So if you wanted to do repairs or if you want to take up the energy, you could do that. Okay, so moving farther back, so this is a flyer. It comes with metal detector or mineral detector, whatever your imagination is, and this one is operated by a steering wheel, which is classic space. And then it had back here you have these tool stations that can connect to various spaceships. This pops off as well, and you have two unique sensors there. We can move farther back and get a good look at the rocket with the satellite at the top. Now, I included these two translucent yellow plates to make it easy for people to put the rocket back on. That's an obvious way of doing it to show people where it goes so it fits nice and snug in the bay. So here you can see some of the greebling. There isn't a lot of greebling on here. There's some here, and then there's some here in the back. It's similar to the other side. I just didn't want to use a lot of parts on that, but I did want to show, just make it a little, show some of the inner workings of the ship. So here we have another action item, or another action arrow, and let me show you this. So this pops up, and then this does come out all in one piece, but in real life. So this would be kind of like a data pad, or if you wanted to do some repairs, you could do that. And then over here, you have this opens up, and you have kind of another place for minifigures or robots to sit, just a command station, and they're mirrored on the other side as well. So you can see right there, and then there's another one of those data pads. You have these printed dishes. Those are sensors. Okay. So in the back here, you have your three main engines, and they have thrusters on them. These are thrusters. They're also found in the front area. So I'll take that off. And let me pull all of this off like that. So this right here is what I would consider the bridge, and that can come off. These can also come off. Okay. This main sensor can come off as well. And then inside here, you'll see this is where our rover is. And you can put that on. And then this printed dish can rotate up. And by rotating up, that gives you just a little communications dish, or again, some type of sensor. You also have on this rear section, you have a crane right here that can move things. These are some clips for the walkie-talkies that the minifigs are currently holding. And then moving back here, this is, let me hide this. This is well, I forgot about this part. This is another modular satellite, and this one's a little different than the other ones. It has cargo containers on them, and then it has the two more megaphones. These ones are actually for minifigs to hold, as opposed to being used as fuel. But over here, you have your main dish. Center that, and then it has an antenna like that. Okay, and the cool thing is this comes off as well. So you got that, and this, another part about this is there are these clips right here. So you could actually take parts. You could take these off of here and clip them on there as well. So I kind of envision this as could be used on the ground as kind of like a relay dish. This I kind of envision as a deployable workstation if you wanted to. The cool thing about this is it actually fits nice and snug right in there. So you can actually use this together. So one of the things about this being so modular is you can do something like this, and then you can have a whole new kind of unique ship. So this can slide right on there. It's a little hard to do digitally, but that gives you an idea of what it looks like. You can put that one there. And then you can actually, let me show you this. This is actually more than just parts. It goes together. And these kind of cutout wings are a classic space style. And so you can do this, and then you can actually, you got to rotate these up, but then you have another spaceship once you put these components together like that. And then on here you have these action arrows, and these action arrows you can rotate them, rotate these engines on the inside. And this is another classic space part. It's only available in black currently, but I wanted to include it because it was very popular as an engine for classic space. Now another thing you can do is, and let me move this out here to get some more space, you can do something like this. You can take this and you can actually combine this together like that, so you have a whole different spaceship. Now you can actually move these wings back and put a completely different front on, because these also fit. But if you wanted to put a different front on, you just take that off, and you could grab this front and there's plenty of space. So you have yet another different type of ship. So there's plenty of different combinations that you can see, and I just wanted to show you a couple of them. Go through a couple of the different assemblies, and just kind of talk through a couple of the cool features related to the Deep Space Explorer. So I hope you'll look for it on when voting opens up on February 9th, and I hope to have your support.